All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Just Curious Reacts. Today, we're going to be looking at another one of these celebrated atheists from the West, that of Christopher Hitchens. Today, we're going to be looking at one of his greatest speeches, and we'll be reacting to it. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about our reaction, the thoughts of this celebrated atheist, Mr. Christopher Hitchens. So let's get right into it.
Once you assume a creator and a plan, it makes us objects in a cruel experiment whereby we are created sick and commanded to be well. I'll repeat that. Created sick and then ordered to be well. And over us to supervise this is installed a celestial dictatorship, a kind of divine North Korea. Greedy for uncritical praise from dawn till dusk, and swift to punish the original sins with which it so tenderly gifted us in the very first place.
You know, sometimes when you hear these points of views, it makes you feel like, what am I doing worshiping God or like praying to some higher reality? It's very easy to think logically that this whole thing is like a trap. It's like a mental jail. Yeah, why am I here in the first place? Why do I have to praise some higher being? In the first place, what did I do wrong that I end up, having to come on this earth and go through all this suffering, and now I have to praise some higher being? So you can see from our own experiences how that can resonate with human beings very easily, these type of ideas.
However, let no one say there's no cure. Salvation is offered. Redemption, indeed, is promised at the low price of the surrender of your critical faculties. Religion, it might be said, must be said, would have to admit, makes extraordinary claims, but though I would maintain that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, rather daringly provides not even ordinary evidence for its extraordinary supernatural claims. Therefore, we might begin by asking, and I'm asking my opponent as well as you when you consider your voting, is it good for the world to appeal to our credulity and not to our skepticism? Is it good for the world to worship a deity that takes sides in wars and human affairs? To appeal to our fear and to our guilt, is it good for the world? To our terror of death, is it good to appeal? To preach guilt and shame about the sexual act and the sexual relationship, is this good for the world? And asking yourself the while, are these really religious responsibilities, as I maintain they are? To terrify children with the image of hell and eternal punishment, not just of themselves, but of their parents and those they love.
This is another thought process which really triggers people. Like why do religions come about and teach the concept of heaven and hell and scare, especially young children, when they are told about these concepts like hell? Immediately, of course, they will become fearful of such destinations, not only for themselves, but for their loved ones, their family members also. It seems like a cruel system, this religious process of, from a very early age, telling a child, by nature you have committed sin, what in Christianity they call as the original sin. And now you have to spend your whole life surrendering and making up for it by, as in the words of Christopher Hitchens himself, he says, surrendering your intellectual capabilities and capacities. And that's one way to look, of course, at how religion operates. Another perspective would be, instead of looking at some creator to point the finger at or to put blame upon, maybe we can take all accountability upon our own selves. That we have been caught in this quagmire through our own doing, or through our own will of action.
Perhaps worst of all, to consider women an inferior creation. Is that good for the world? And can you name me a religion that has not done that? To insist that we are created and not evolved in the face of all the evidence. Religion forces nice people to do unkind things.
That's, again, a very strong, especially religion versus like the atheists or non-believers of religious philosophies. This idea of how can we accept that God created man when there is such strong evidence for the process of evolution? Hinduism sort of walks a very thin line there, because even though there is the concept of the creation or manifestation of the universe, there is also references to evolution. For example, in the Upanishads, they talk about the process of the elements combining together and evolving from a subtle form to a gross form. So there is, some mention of a certain type of evolution within matter, not with regards to consciousness, but again, you can see from an atheist standpoint how, based on, of course, the strong evidence, the solid evidence that there is for evolutionary theory, especially, of course, we know, there remains room, of course, to argue and debate such ideas. One argument, of course, that people generally make with regards to the theory of evolution of Darwin is that the theory has a solid basis to explain the matter aspect or the physical aspects of evolution from a unicellular all the way up to the multicellular species that we are today. But it doesn't account for very clearly or thoroughly the evolution in the precision and expansion of consciousness. So that one is still being, debated upon by scientists today. All right, let's get back to the video.
And also makes intelligent people say stupid things. Handed a small baby for the first time, is it your first reaction to think, beautiful, almost perfect, now please hand me the sharp stone for its genitalia that I may do the work of the Lord? No. It is very self-evident in our material world. Let me ask Tony again. In fairness, no one was arguing that religion should or will die out of the world. And all I'm arguing is that it would be better if there was a great deal more by way of an outbreak of secularism. And I knew it would come up, that we'd be told about charity. And I take this very seriously. Because we know, ladies and gentlemen, as it happens with the first generation of people who do really, what the cure for poverty really is. It eluded people for a long, long time. The cure for poverty has a name, in fact. It's called the empowerment of women. Try it in Bangladesh, try it in Bolivia. It works.
What's the cure for poverty? No. Of course, we know the more people that are working in a society, the greater chance of that society growing, evolving financially. I love how bold he is in making claims, Mr. Hitchens, that poverty can be solved simply by empowering women. In our Vedic scriptures, they speak about wealth and prosperity as a result of the merits that you have attained through past lives. So one cannot enjoy great wealth or great merit unless one has punya or, they have done great deeds in past lives. That's, of course, the Vedic perspective or outlook on it. Of course, here now in this world, if we look, how many of us are doing any particular Vedic rituals, or is it even alive today, such traditions where people do specific Vedic fire rituals for attaining wealth in a future life? It's not something that is practiced today anymore. But it's interesting to see, yes, society does improve, does go one step forward, especially financially and economically, when a society is empowered to work, especially a gender which has not been in the workforce for many, many centuries, that of women. All right, let's get back to the video.
All the time. Name me one religion that stands for that, or ever has. Wherever you look in the world and you try to remove the shackles of ignorance and disease and stupidity from women, it is invariably the clerisy that stands in the way. Or in the case of Now, furthermore, if you're going to grant this to Catholic charities, say, which I would hope are doing a lot of work in Africa, if I was a member of a church that had preached that AIDS was not as bad as condoms, I'd be putting some conscience money into Africa too, I must say. But it won't bring, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be funny. If I was trying to be funny, you mistook me. It won't bring back the millions of people who've died wretched deaths because of that teaching. That still goes on. I'd like to hear a word of apology from the religious about that, if it was on offer. Do we grant to Hamas and to Hezbollah, both of whom will tell you and incessantly do, look at our charitable work. Without us, Effendi, the poor of Gaza, the poor of Lebanon, where would they be but for our... And they're right. They do a great deal of charitable work. It's nothing compared to the harm that they do, but it's a great deal of work all the same. We don't require divine permission to know right from wrong.
That's a fact that we have to accept, that religious institutions, as much as they have done good, for society in the name of good, their inversely proportional activity when it comes to doing bad also has also been on display in society. They have made, much larger contribution of negative impact on society compared to positive, especially when it comes to wars and genocide, etc. This is a sad fact that we have to accept. That's the nature of man-made institutions.
We don't need tablets administered to us 10 at a time in tablet form on pain of death to be able to have a moral argument. No, we have the reasoning and the moral suasion of Socrates and of our own abilities. We don't need dictatorship to give us right from wrong, and that's my lot. Thank you.
Do we need as a guru or some scripture to teach us, some commandments to tell us, what is the moral code of conduct or not? I was reading recently from the CEO of Humans of Bombay. It's a very famous company, a business here in India. And the CEO was writing about absorbing as much as you can take in, read, reflect, listen, but trust your own intuition. Choose what is best for you because only you know what is best. Now, there's a little problem with that statement or that argument, at least from my perspective, that if we leave it up to our own intellect always to choose what is best, thinking that we know what is best, what happens if we have been brought up in a society or in an environment where we have been colored to think that what is bad is good? Then our intuition will be what? Based on our environment and all the inclinations and tendencies that we have gained. Or in Sanskrit, we say samskaras that we have gained from the environment around us. So can we wholly and fully trust our own intellect, our own intuition, when it has been shaped by the environment that we have grown up in? So is there a need for a supplementary guiding book or guiding figure in our lives? Well, that's for each of us to decide, but wholly and fully depending on our own intellect and our own intuition to make any decision, whether it be morally or philosophically, I think there is some room for error.
I'm intrigued now. So religion could be a good thing after all. Sometimes we think. It's now the proposition. What would a religion have to do to get that far? Well, I think it would have to give up all supernatural claims. It would have to say, please, it would have to say, no, you are not to do this under the threat of reward, heaven, or the terror of punishment, hell. No, we can't offer you miracles.
Yes, that would be ideal situation to have a religion where it doesn't propel you into doing some religious activity on the basis of fear of either going to hell or with the desire to go to heaven. But then what prompts man to do anything? Human beings, to propel them in any direction, they need to have a desire for it, and they can only have a desire if they see something beneficial, or if they have fear from something, then they tend to move away from something. So generally religious institutions, they harness our desire for happiness and our fear of sorrow. They utilize this to help us to take up the spiritual life or religious life. With regards to miracles, of course, and supernatural, as Christopher Hitchens here, he says that religion should, to move forward with society, they should renounce such ideas, supernatural, etc. See, religion stands on the basis of what? Their foundation is that they are speaking of something, they are showing us something which is not known through our senses, which is not known through general, communication and worldly fields of wisdom. They are accessing a field of study, a field of knowledge which is beyond the senses. Therefore, of course, they'll always be in the category of supernatural.
Find me the church that will say, forget all that, faith healing, no. It would have to give that up. It would have to give up the idea of an eternal, unalterable authority figure who was judge, jury, and executioner against whom there could be no appeal, and who wasn't finished with you even when you died.
Getting rid of the creator concept, the God concept, the judge, jury, and executioner concept. Some religions, of course, even within our Indian traditions, the Bharatiya darshanas or the schools of philosophy, not many people know this, but there are schools of philosophy which don't have the concept of the Ishvara or the concept of the God. For example, there is a school of philosophy known as Purva Mimamsa. They are called as the Karma Kandins, or the people who propagate the practices of doing the rituals which are found in the Vedas with regards to Vedic karma or Vedic karma. So Vedic rituals, Vedic practices. In their philosophy, there is no acceptance of an Ishvara or a cosmic reality, a God. There's another school of philosophy known as the Sankhya school. And the Sankhya school of philosophy, one of the branches of that school, they are called as Anishvaravadins. They don't accept an Ishvara. They don't accept a reality of a God, a creator concept. So there are schools in Bharatiya philosophies, in the darshanas, in these schools of philosophies, even within Asia, which have such ideas. The argument to make for, which one is most beneficial for a seeker on their spiritual path, of course, that's up to each one of us. But we should not be so ready and easy and willing to let go of the concept of a totality. At least in my perspective, that sense of individuality and limitedness that we have, the idea that there's something bigger than us, looking over us, it provides, of course, a sense of relief, a sense of depressurization in our lives. Let me know if you agree or not.
That's quite a lot for religion to give up, don't you think? But who would not say it would be better off without it, if it was what Tony Blair would like it to be? An aspect of humanism, an aspect of compassion, an aspect of the realizations of human solidarity, the knowledge that we are in fact all bound up one with another, that we have responsibilities to one to another, and that, as I do when I give blood, partly because I don't lose the pint forever, I can always get it back, but that there's actually a sense of pleasure to be had in helping your fellow creature. I think that should be enough. Thank you.
Christopher Hitchens here, he raises a lot of points about how a religion can connect to the masses if it gives up, all the supernatural, all the mysterious, all the mystical, all the so-called in the name of good that religion does. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed our reaction to this video, Christopher Hitchens' greatest speech. If you want to see more content like this, then do let us know in the comment section below. And once again, if you want to keep up with all of our content here on Just Curious, do subscribe to our channel. Until next time, stay curious.